Hello everybody, my name is Joshua and I'd like to welcome you back to another episode of Coffee, Cats, and King, where we discuss books both new and old. I will share with you pictures of my cats who will make you wish they were your cats, and I will drink enough coffee for me and everybody watching. My mug today, it's one of my favorites. It's my bibliophile mug. Thought it was the best choice considering what this video is about. My shirt. It's Chris Cornell. That is a loss that I really just never got over. I'm here today with my July wrap-up. I did that impromptu wrap-up for June before. I didn't get a real one, but this time here I've got one. Despite everything that happened this month, I finished 15 books, which I'm pretty pleased with because I had a couple that were, a little longer, 400, 450 pages up, one that was over 600 pages, closer to 700. So I'm pleased with 15 books. And overall, I'm pretty pleased with the reading month as a whole. I definitely ended on a strong note, so yeah, let's go on and jump into it. Alright, very first book of the month is The Price by Alexandra Sokoloff. This is my second time reading something from Miss Sokoloff. The first was a ghost story that I'm rather fond of. So I had high hopes going into this one, but I've kind of held off for that reason as well. And I was pretty pleased with it. It was 4.5 stars for me. This is about a gentleman who is quickly rising in the ranks of local government. And he is, he has his he has his sights set much higher than that. But he has a child who is very sick, and they have basically, him and his wife have put all of the money into trying to get her healthy again. They are at this particular hospital where this strange man keeps popping up around people who, seemingly should not be making it out of that hospital. And he pops up, and then suddenly they start getting better. And I think most of you are going to know where the book goes from there, but it does throw a couple curveballs in there regardless. Overall, though, I think this is a really solid read. I think it is good for someone that does not read an exceptional amount of horror. I think this is a good beginner horror, if you will, but still very much enjoyable for horror connoisseurs. So 4.5 stars for me. It was a good way to start the month out. Next up was a bit of a random read. This was E.F. Benson with The Blotting Book. And this is actually an old mystery. I was kind of excited about it because I don't read a lot of mystery, but I had this little craving, this little itch for one, and I picked this up a while ago to Goodwill for $1 or whatever. Thought, what the heck, I'll give it a try. And what was really disappointing about it, because overall it was disappointing, it got a 2.5 from me. It was okay. Still probably worth a read, but, well, here's the thing. I almost always read the back blurb of a book. Well, the back blurb of this book gives the entire book away in 3 quick little paragraphs. And so that mystery and that stuff that I was anticipating happening, well, it does happen, but it happens in the last 20 pages of this book, and everything leading up to that is stuff that you basically already know because this tells you. So it was definitely let down in that regard. I don't know how much of it was the fault of me reading the back and how much was the fault of the book and the writing itself. So I'm somewhere between a 2.5, 3-star read on this one. There's definitely much better out there, so it's not one I'm going to actively recommend to people looking for even a quick little mystery courtroom drama. Going steadily down, unfortunately, this is C.M. Kornbluth and Frederick Pohl with The Wonder Effect. And this is just a quick collection of short stories from the two of them. They used to team up a lot together and do this sort of thing. And this one was just a letdown. It was a big letdown. It's 2 stars. I'm not going to talk a lot about it. Again, there's much better out there. It's really not worth your time unless you are just a massive fan of these two and insist on collecting and reading everything they did together. Following that, I got into Dark Stars, New Tales of Dark Horror. This was 2.5 for me. I seem to find that a lot of these collections nowadays of horror, they approach horror in such an abstract way that it's really not even horrific anymore, you know what I mean? People are writing this stuff in a way that they think it's edgy and weird, and that automatically makes it unsettling, and that we don't need anything actively scary or freaky going on, because this guy's having thoughts that maybe aren't his own, but at the same time the story is really about this book that he read about that doesn't exist, and we don't actually see the book, and it's disappointing. Little mini rant there. I'm done with it. It's disappointing, and this one was overall rather disappointing. There was a story in there that I enjoyed. Not many though, so 2.5 stars for this one, not one that I'm going to actively recommend. This next book I absolutely will recommend, and I'm kind of surprised it took me this long to read it. Some of you may give me a little crap about it actually, but I finally read Michael Crichton's The Andromeda Strain. 5 stars. Really enjoyed this one. I know it was a bit of a miss for some people, but for me, I think this is a case of me picking up this book right when I needed it. I was on a string of bad reads that just seemed to progressively be getting worse, and I needed something totally different, and this was it. So this is 5 stars for me. If you don't know the story, this satellite that comes crashing out of space into this little town, and everybody in the town dies instantly, or nearly everybody dies instantly. And it is up to just this handful of scientists to figure out what happened and if this thing is going to spread. And it's great. It's great. The ending is where some people are going to maybe not enjoy the book as much, but for me, after a day or two, I came to appreciate it. It's still not what I'd hoped for in the ending, I guess, but overall, like I said, 5 stars. If you haven't read it, I'm going to suggest this one. Absolutely. All right. This one was a big disappointment for me. So, for years now, I've remembered this book that I read when I was very young. I was still in elementary school, in fact. And I remembered the cover, and I remembered maybe a scene or two, and that was it. And I've wanted to pick it up, and wanted to pick it up as an adult to see, why I remembered this book. And finally, I did. I found a copy of Judas Virus by David Best. after years and years of remembering this book and remembering this cover, it was a 3-star read for me. It was okay, and that's about it. This is one about some folks that are testing out for the first time transplanting a specially modified pig liver into a human as a permanent solution, and that first patient happens to be the estranged father of the lead character, who is a doctor at that hospital. And much as the title, Judas Virus, may suggest, bad things happen and people start to get sick and die. And like I said, I had high hopes, but at the end of the day, it was just okay. If you're going to read one about a virus getting out and killing people and mutating, don't read Judas Virus, read Andromeda Strain. Alright, so after 2 science-y, medical, thriller-ish type books, I was ready to get back into some horror, but I wanted to start slow. I wanted something I can read on the side. So I picked up an Ellen Datlow anthology titled Devil and the Deep. And this one was fantastic. I actually listened to this one on audiobook, and I thought that it was going to get boring at a certain point, I'll be honest, because all these stories are about that, about horrors of the deep, of the water, of the ocean. And I thought at some point there was going to be a certain sameness that came about. But that just wasn't the case. All of these stories really impressed me. And the narration really impressed me. There's just not a lot that I can say towards the negative in regards to this one. If you have a fear of the deep blue sea, then pick up Devil in the Deep, because it'll really scare you. And if you're looking for a themed anthology, this is definitely a great one. Devil in the Deep Blue Sea by Ellen Datlow, 5 stars. I will definitely pick it up again in the future. Alright, this next one, I think some people are probably going to disagree with me, but that's okay. That's kind of what this is all about. So, in what is probably the biggest disappointment of the month for me, which is saying a lot because of Judas Virus, I read Mike McDowell's Gilded Needles. And previously I read The Amulet from Michael McDowell, really enjoyed it, really looking forward to picking up some of his other work. Gilded Needles sounded great, takes place in the 1800s, follows a group of female criminals and one particular judge that really seems to have it out for their family. And it sounded fantastic, but it just dragged. It dragged, and yes, the ending was great. I'll give it that. The ending was great, it was satisfying. I love the ending. The rest of the book just took so long, and there was so much I felt that could have been skipped over, or I don't know, unfortunately there were times that bored me. And that is unfortunate, because I had really high hopes for this book. Now, does it mean that I'm not going to pick up the next Mike McDowell? No, of course not. I'm still going to keep reading stuff from this guy. I really want to continue to explore his work in the same way that I want to continue exploring Thomas Tryon's work. But for me, Gilded Needles was it was a big letdown. I thought I was going to get a 5-star read, and I think I gotta give it a 3, because there were times that I genuinely wanted to just skip a couple pages to see what happened, when the fun began again, if you will. As some of you know, I've been trying to incorporate more poetry into my reading, so this month I picked up Hungry Constellations by Mike Allen. This one is very much poetry revolving around horror, maybe more specifically cosmic horror, and some of them were excellent. Some of them I felt just tried too hard to be mysterious and spooky, and it just failed. So 3.5 stars. If you're someone that is maybe just dipping your toe into poetry, but you are in fact a fan of Lovecraft, then this might be a good collection for you. Next audiobook for the month was Growing Things and Other Stories by Paul Tremblay. Now, not long ago, I read his book, A Head Full of Ghosts, and it blew my friggin' mind. I gotta be honest, that book, wow. So, you know, they talk about the story Growing Things, and then I realized that he's got a collection of short stories called Growing Things, so here's that story. So of course I had to listen to it, and it was 4 stars. I expected it to be 5, but there were a couple stories that had that kind of issue that I was talking about earlier, where it seemed less like horror and more like just weird fiction, and that wasn't what I was looking for. So it threw me off a little. There were some that, you know, I didn't feel like there was a conclusion necessarily. It was just, hey, this weird thing happened, and then let's move on to the next story. Most of these stories I very much enjoyed, and so this was 4 stars. It was definitely the weakest outing for me in regards to Paul Tremblay so far, but if this is the weakest that I find from him, bravo, man. I'm still really looking forward to getting to his next book, because novel-wise, Cabin at the End of the World was 5 stars for me. Head Full of Ghosts, 10 stars if I could give it. So I'm definitely one of those people that are really into Paul Tremblay, and I can't wait to get my hands on the next one. Alright, briefly, I want to talk about Chris Coppell with Lingering. This one was 2.5 stars. I got this for free on Kindle, so I figured I'd give it a read. And it was, well, it was just that. It was okay. It was middling. There were a few twists to it, if you will, all very predictable. It's about a young couple that purchased a new home, their first big purchase together, and weird things happen around the property, and weird things happen in the house. And like I said, it meandered a bit. There were things in there that I thought were just completely unnecessary. And the big twists, or what was supposed to be big twists, weren't. Not if you've read any sort of horror before, not if you've read haunted house stories before. There was nothing new here. That said, the writing was okay, and considering I got it for free, I can only complain so much. So 2.5 stars. If you are very new to horror or not into horror at all and you want to give it a try, I guess you could pick this up if you're looking for something that isn't particularly scary or spooky, but there is far better out there. Alright, now this bad boy, this behemoth here, Kate Elliott's King's Dragon. This is volume 1 of what I now know is a 7-volume, 5,500 plus page series. And that's daunting. This one is about 650 pages. The beginning was it was a bit of an information dump more than anything. There were a lot of names, a lot of history, a lot of backstory thrown at you at once. So many characters that it was a little hard to keep up. And I gotta be honest, the first 300 pages did not go so well for me. And at that 300 page mark, I was just about ready to throw in the towel. Because I was only halfway in at 300 pages. I'm like, good Lord, man, I could have finished another book by now, and I could be done with a second book by the time I finish this one. So I was really ready to throw in the towel. I gave it 50 more pages, and miracle of miracles, something clicked. The writing started picking up, the pace started picking up, and it became less of an information dump and more of us really getting into the heart of the story. So the rest of the book from then on, great stuff. Basically it came down to the first 300 pages, 2.5, 3 stars. Not really worth it to continue with such a vast series. The last 300 pages, 4 or 5 star realm. So I gave 4 stars at the end of the day, and I'm still debating, honestly. This is the first, this is the second. It is also 650 pages. So I really have to decide here whether I'm going to continue this series or not. It's just such an investment, you know? And people in the comments before, they said, well, just read it until you stop enjoying it. But my issue, my concern with that isn't that I'm going to stop enjoying it in book 2. It's that I'm going to stop enjoying it in book 4 or 5, where I am now thousands of pages in, who knows how many hours wasted on a series that I'm not even going to finish. So I'm really on the fence about it. I don't know, I feel like it's going to take the right circumstances for me to pick up that second book and give it a chance. So 4 stars for the first one. Will I continue? That remains to be seen. 4 stars for the next one as well. This is John R. Holt with When We Dead Awaken. Love this cover. Love this cover. This was a bit of an odd duck. There were so many moments in this book where this should have been a 5-star read. And then there were times that just dragged it down. I'm really at odds with myself on this one. I have labeled it a 4-star read because there are just a few light aspects that really bother me. This one starts off with a man who has been having terrible dreams that are essentially just his dead brother talking to him and telling him, I'm coming back for you. I'm coming back for you, and I'm going to get my revenge on you and your family. And we slowly learn what happened and why. And I do appreciate that John Holt does not give us that big information dump at the beginning. He lets this thing play out until very close to the end before you actually find out why his brother blames him, why he is haunting him, or even if he is actually haunting him, or if it is just Jack's own mind twisted against him. So that's why I'm on the fence about this one. There was one particular moment in this book that really brought it down for me, because it felt like the whole thing just shifted. All of the characters had to change in a certain way to make that particular event happen. And it's such an impactful event on the story that it just didn't sit well with me, because it didn't gel with what I had learned about the characters up to that point. So that is where it loses that star for me, because from there's no turning back. This thing happened and they have to kind of stick with it. So this one very much had the potential to be a 5-star read. If John Holt wrote anything else, I'm definitely going to seek it out, because I'm very curious to see what else this guy did. easily could have been 5 stars had that one aspect, that one event been changed, or had some characters' attitudes been changed to make it make sense. So at the end of the day, 4 stars. If you can find it, pick it up. It's a lot of fun. And I am definitely going to be looking for more from this man. Final physical book of the month was another 5-star read from me. This is Christine Sparks with The Elephant Man. And this one is based off the movie by David Lynch, which is of course based off of the actual story. So both the book and the movie referred to the Elephant Man as John Merrick. His name was actually Joseph Merrick. But in this, they follow the movie, so he is John. And this is essentially the novelization of the movie, of the real life story of the man known as the Elephant Man. He was an unfortunate soul who was very disfigured, very much taken advantage of for the vast majority of his life, and through the kindness of a few men towards the end of his life, he finally was able to enjoy a little bit of what the world had to offer. And somehow through it all, he stayed strong, he persevered. That said, this book will tear your friggin' heart out. I don't get emotional when reading, but I have read a lot about Joseph Merrick. I'm very intimately familiar with his life and his story. And although this book takes liberties with certain things, unfortunately, a lot of what happens in here actually happened, and it was much, much worse, and it did get to me. For that reason alone, it's 5 stars. This was a great one. I think that it does an excellent job of portraying the man as he was, for portraying what he had to go through. It's 5 stars. And the final book that I read this month was The Final Women by Paradeep Ahul. And this was 5 stars. This was awesome. That's it. It was awesome. If you are a slasher fan, you should pick this book up. If you are a horror fan, you should pick this book up. It's about a group of final girls who survived massacres at this particular camp. Years later, the monster, the thing that attacked them all, comes back, and they decide they need to band together to kill this thing once and for all. And there's so much more to it than that. There are weird, humorous aspects to it that, I'll be honest, they didn't work as well for me. I wish they hadn't been there, because some of the jokes just felt wrong. They felt flat. That's really the only thing that brings this down for me. But even so, this was a 5-star read, because when the author is on, he's on. And there's just so much going on, so much impact, and it feels like an actual horror movie. I mean, translating it from film to this, you could easily read this thing and think that it was a slasher movie that someone had just done a novelization of. And if this could be a movie, oh man, it would be incredible. So this is a great one, 5 stars. I have the Kindle version right now, of course, but I fully intend to pick up a physical copy. I had a friggin' blast with this book. It was awesome, and the monster was just great. And that brings us to the end. So 15 books this month, and next month is going to be an interesting one. I've been debating back and forth on whether I'm going to do a TBR, and I don't think so. I think I'm kind of liking just walking in here when I finish a book, grabbing the next one that interests me, and doing it that way. So instead, I'm just going to keep you guys updated with what I'm reading through my videos. If you have any suggestions, feel free to let me know. I'm always open to picking up new books, of course. Never a bad reason to buy good books, right? So that's it. I'm going to call it a wrap. Thank you guys. Stay safe. Have a great week. Drink awesome coffee. Cheers.